Hello, and welcome to the Willow Kids podcast, a space where curiosity is nurtured, creativity is encouraged, and learning is treated as a lifelong adventure. At Willow Kids, we believe children thrive when education goes beyond memorization, when it invites wonder, builds confidence, and honors each child's unique rhythm of growth. In this podcast, we explore how kids learn best, hear from inspiring educators and parents, and share ideas that support thoughtful, joyful learning in academics, the arts, and life. Whether you're a parent, educator, or a lifelong learner, we're glad you're here. Let's grow strong minds and kind hearts together. Before we dive into our topic today, we just have a little announcement. We are excited to share that Willow Kids is officially launching its tutoring pilot program in Calabasas, California. This pilot is designed for families who want something more thoughtful and personalized than traditional tutoring, an approach that supports academic growth while nurturing curiosity, confidence, and a genuine love of learning. If you're a parent in or around Calabasas and interested in learning more, we invite you to visit www.willow.kids to explore the program, see what we're building, and sign up for updates. Spots for the pilot are limited, and we're excited to grow this community together from the ground up. Visit www.willow.kids, and thank you for being part of the Willow Kids journey. I'm your host, Katelynn, with a background in child and adolescent development, and today my guest will be Sarah James.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm an early childhood education specialist with a master's in early childhood education and postgrad in special ed.
Awesome. And today we're going to be talking about helping your kids thrive in school and in life, the whole child advantage. We're going to focus on why academics alone is not enough, how social and emotional skills support learning and confidence, how children's self-concept and resilience and motivation influence school success, and simple things parents can do at home. Before we talk about strategies, I want to start with what the whole child approach really looks like in every day. Many parents feel a lot of pressure to focus on grades and school success. Sarah, why do you think that pressure sometimes makes learning harder for kids to understand instead of helping them?
I think a couple things. One, I think there's a lack of confidence. Like learning can be really scary, and if you feel like your parents are like, get this, get this, get this, get this, it's a lot of pressure and that can be scary and it can make it hard to be willing to try things because a large part of the learning process is willingness to fail and experiencing, what it means to not know the answer right away and how to find it. And if the pressure is simply on getting a concept or getting something right, it can feel like scary to try. But I think another part of that too is children feel your stress. Like we talk a lot about co-regulation. Um, if you are like super, super nervous, they're going to get super nervous and then their brains are just not going to function at top capacity.
Yeah, I love that. Co-regulation is something that is so overlooked that it's true. You as a parent really do influence how your kids are approaching things. I think it's important to understand that kids are also more than their grades and they need support in emotional, social, creative, and all of the things in all of the areas as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we put a lot of pressure on grades and on right answers, we kind of erase an important part of learning, which is the learning process and is the path to get to a right answer or even to get to an answer.
I definitely agree. And I wanted to go ahead and share our study that we're going to be utilizing today. I feel like it's really important and really talks about how a lot of it is important to our kiddos. Our study is the self-concept of pro-social school behaviors, well-being, and academic skills in elementary school and students, the whole child perspective. I think it's really interesting because it talks about why academics, learning with the kids and everything is so important. Sorry, I don't know why it's not taking. So I really wanted to point out in this part of the study that pro-social behaviors are correlated with academic achievement. It shows children are more successful in school when they have relationship skills and understand the social norms of behavior. So, Sarah, if you think grades are only one part of success, what other parts of a child's growth really matter for school and life?
I think one of the top things again is confidence, um, a desire to learn, an enjoyment of the learning process, and all of the processing and cognitive skills that go into learning itself. Um, I understand that there is a necessity in the school system for some way to measure quote unquote success. Because especially in public schools, there's, the teacher student ratios are way too high. And it's just, societally, we need this way to measure academic success. But truly, I don't personally find that much value in it for the individual child. I think it puts a lot of pressure. I think it puts a lot of stress on both the child and the family. I think a lot about myself. I went to a progressive education school where we did not get grades through sixth grade. We were never graded. It was all just like project based and you would get feedback, but there was never a percentage or a number or a letter or anything associated with it. And so when I entered middle school and I started receiving grades, it was very stressful because when I got I will never forget my first math test ever. I'd never taken a test or anything. And I got a 75. And I ran over to my sister and I was like, this is amazing. I got 75% of this right. Like, what a big deal this is for me that I've never taken a test before. And I got 75% right. That's fantastic. And she looked at me and she's like, Sarah, that's not good. You're not supposed to get that. I was like, oh, okay. But as you know, a 12-year-old who had never taken a test before, I was like, this is amazing. I understood more than half of it. How wonderful is that for me? And I feel like that's where grades can be so defeating for some children. And also, they're not necessarily a measure of success or even a measure of if you understood the concept. It's could you regurgitate the concept onto the page?
I love that you said that because it's honestly so true. Like, you got 75% of that right. Like, that's still amazing. That's more than half. That's more than two-thirds. Like, you are doing so well. But you're right, academically and in a school-based structure, like, as your sister said, that's not good. Like, that's not passing. We're not there yet. Like, you need to keep going. But it's true. How much did you retain? How much did you remember? And like, oh, I got 75% of it. Like, and that being such like a monumental thing in like your life that you can remember so vividly is it just goes to show how academics are so rigid on what's acceptable and what's not.
Yeah. And I think that was partially too like such a stark difference for me transitioning from only having received feedback, which would have been like, hey, these are wonderful. Can you apply that here? To just a number on the front page of like a 5-page exam. Like, how defeating is that too? That you spent 2 hours pouring yourself into this. And of course, we don't see that it takes a teacher time to grade something, but all you get is a big red like letter.
Yep.
Like, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and it kind of goes to show like why like this whole child approach is so important because like if you're just focusing on the academics, you're destroying that self-confidence, that self-esteem if you are focusing on just that number on your paper. And so like being able to have like your emotional well-being and your self-concept so strongly associated with academic outcome is going to destroy a child who struggles with the traditional learning.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, so I'm wondering how do friendships and learning to treat others kindly help kids do better in school?
This is such an interesting question. I think we talk a lot about social emotional development, forming friendships, all of that in the early childhood stages of learning. But it kind of falls off the list once we get to like later elementary school, middle school, and high school. But there is such a huge social component to learning, especially in the traditional school model and setup that we have today. Um, not only because you're literally in a classroom with all of your peers, but also because there is, a competitiveness, a peer pressure element, a social status. Like, I don't know about you, but like everyone loved the smart kids at my school. The kids that like seemed to be able to just take one look at the test and be like done and get 100. Like, there's such, like, social clout to say, honestly, especially in, like, middle school and high school for those kids that seem like they're putting no work into anything, yet they're succeeding. So I think forming real friendships with people who can, A, help each other, lean on each other's strengths is so valuable, but also support each other, like, and not just be nasty of like, oh, you got an 80 and I got a 100. I'm so much smarter than you. Like those real friendships will help you work through a lot of that. And also feeling confident to even raise your hand in class and ask a question. If you feel like, you don't have allies in that classroom, it can be really daunting to raise your hand and contribute or to admit that you don't know something.
That's very true. Not having those relationships or, as you said, those allies in the classroom kind of really impact your learning because now you're worried about the social aspect. Like, what is this person going to think of me? What if they think I'm dumb? Like, what about this? So, having skills like sharing or helping really can help, like, boost that classroom engagement in the learning because yes, technically you're just worried about academics, but the social plays into it so much more, especially in those older ages. Like if you get to middle school and you don't know something, someone's making fun of you. And that's not what we want. Like that's what's breaking down those kids' self-esteem and that's what's making kids kind of withdraw from academics.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a really cool example was like in group projects, they go ahead and like use teamwork skills. So if you're telling kids like, "Hey, you guys need to work together. Like you have to focus on this, and then combine the two," it really helps transfer into academic problem solving. Versus if you're just going to be like, "Okay, go do your work," and then if it's right, awesome. If it's wrong, better do it again.
Yeah, I think group projects are such an interesting model for looking at social dynamics in the school setting. A, because some people love group projects and some people just like hate group projects with their whole being. And I think part of that depends on if you were the kid that ended up doing all of the work or if you kind of, there's some people that end up doing none of the work and that's why they love group projects. Or if you kind of got to actually experience what it's like to work on a team. I also think group projects are such a valuable life skill. Like it was one of those things that everyone, was kind of like, oh, why are we doing this? What is the point in school? But the reality is like life is a group project. Um, Parenting certainly is a group project. Um, Working in a workplace, team dynamics, like especially for myself, moving from a teaching role to an administration role is such like a weird shift because I was always in that like team group project um space. To then I had to like tell people what to do. I was like, this is weird. They're listening to me. This is bizarre. Um, so I think, it's such an interesting like model for the adult workforce as well as like the training.
Yeah, absolutely. And our study even goes to talk about like group projects or working with each other and like the meta-analysis that they used for this study showed that well implemented and supported school-based social emotional learning programs, which can include group projects or can include like understanding more elements of just do your work, do this, and just kind of making them go together, boosted social emotional competencies. So it boosted, self esteem, it boosted self confidence, and it actually helped kids build friendships because they were working so like interwoven with other kids that they have to learn that they are different personalities, there's different work styles that this person doesn't understand if you explain this way, so you have to explain a different way. And it also led to academic achievement, well being, mental health. And so I like that we've talked about group projects because that's one of the most obvious examples that I could think of.
Yeah, and I think too about like just collaboration, whether it's in a formal group project or not. Like, I think about in the early childhood setting, like the dramatic play center, there's
Yeah.
hardly ever just one kid in there. This is not the type of group project that you think of when you hear group project, but it's like a cafe. Well, a cafe can't run with just one person because either you don't have employees or you don't have customers, and at that point, it's just a kitchen. So there's always more than one kid in there collaborating, conversing, trying to work through the worlds together. So I always loved that area of my classroom when I taught preschool.
Yeah, it's such a fun area to just even watch as an adult, and you're like, "Wow, these kids, this is their first social interactions, this is their first year of it, and they're making it work." Like, there's no care about if they're doing it right or wrong, like, that they're just playing, and that play-based model allows kids to learn so much faster as well.
Absolutely, and it allows them to enjoy it.
Yeah. I wanna talk about the emotional side of learning, the motivation, the confidence, the resilience. How does believing in themselves or not believing in themselves, affect children learn and try new things in school?
But it makes such a huge difference. I mean, like, I think about yourself. Like, if you really don't want to do something or really don't think that you can do something, you're probably not going to give it 100%. You're going to give it just enough effort to say that you tried, um, or show that you tried, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, so for a child, a, we have to remember that, they're still learning, like, what the world is like and what people are like and what's going on and everything. So, like, there is a natural curiosity there, and if we can foster that and encourage that that natural curiosity is fantastic, you should feel confident to explore and do and see and sing and dance and all the things, they're gonna want to do it. Whereas if we kind of shut that down, a lot of parents telling their kids to be quiet or they're asking too many questions or those kinds of things, like we can kind of break that natural curiosity and that natural, like, curious spirit, in a way that can affect their drive to learn.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up, like, we have to nurture it, like, you have to be willing to engage with whatever is going on in their brain, and, like, if they wanna ask 100 why questions and you can answer 100 why questions, you might find it annoying as a parent or an educator, but you're allowing that kid to start thinking, and the wheels are starting to turn, and so they won't just stop at one simple answer, and they'll be able to question things going on in their life, and I think that's a really important skill to have, and knowing that.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think too, I never wanna tell a parent, like, you have to answer 100 why questions, otherwise you're, hurting your child's development, but I think there's a thoughtful way to maybe say, "Let's answer that later because we need to get in the car or because we're at church or because, whatever. We need to not be talking right now or mommy needs a break right now."
Yeah.
But responding in a way of, "That's a fantastic question. Why don't we go grab your book about farm animals and see if you can find the answer?" And that's a great way for you to still foster it and, like, also step back and maybe break the chain of
Yeah.
whys as opposed to just being like, "Not now."
Yeah, I love that. I use, when I work with my kids, and I work in a special education setting, so it's a little different, but we use a parking lot model, like, "Oh, I love that idea. Let's park it in a spot and we'll save it for later." And then at the end of the day, I'm like, "Oh, let's pick 3 questions from our parking lot," and then we can
I
go
love
through.
that.
Yeah, and so, like, you're letting the kids know, like, "Hey, I hear you. I really wanna get to this. Let's do it when we have time. That way I can really give you my attention." And kids are like, "Ooh, yay. Okay, perfect."
Absolutely, because I never want someone to feel like they're expected to answer 1,000 questions, like, you don't want there to be a guilt associated with it if you don't do it, but we
Yes.
also wanna acknowledge that, like, we have to be thoughtful in the way that we respond, so that they still are excited about it.
Yeah. And so, like, going back, like, children with strong self-worth and strong self-confidence tend to do better on academic measures, and that's just because they're a plant. They're being watered in all different aspects of their life, and they're being able to grow. And so being able to grow, like, with curiosity and art and playing outside, like, they're gonna have better academic achievement because they're trusting in themselves and they're a lot more confident.
Yeah, absolutely. I picture honestly, like, I don't know, about you. My daughter is a big Bluey fan, and I just picture the fact that like Bluey never stops talking. And it's because her parents are always like, that's great. Let's make this. Here's a cardboard box. Here's a, you know, there's one episode where the dad's hand is a duck. That's their pet, like the whole episode. And I'm like, that's like Bluey thinks the entire world is her oyster, and it should be. And that's why she never stops exploring things, and I aspire to give that curiosity to my daughter.
I love that. That's a good point. Like, you're just like, the world is your oyster. You take it as you get it and you just run with it. And I love that. So Sarah, how do you think doing well academically help kids grow their confidence levels then?
I think this is kind of a double-edged sword because I think there is a lot of pressure that goes into doing well academically. So if you do well, then people praise you for it and you feel good about it, and that's great. However, I'm not a big believer that we should be like only praising academic success and highlighting that as like the most important thing, because then you also end up with these kids who think that they are super smart and they know how to do everything, which is great until they get something wrong and they crumble.
Hmm.
So I feel like this is what really ties into that whole child model as well, is making sure that we are praising academic success as much as we are praising creative success, language success, um, you know, gym success, whatever they're into, whatever great train setup they built or Lego set, or they jumped something on their bicycle, whatever it is, like making sure that we're giving praise in all elements, because if we start to value purely academic success, then we're setting them up for this like big moment of defeat when they reach a natural roadblock, which they will inevitably do.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like, if you want kids to build that confidence, it has to be all over the place. It can't just be in one aspect. Because you're right, you are going to hit something that you don't know how to do. I will consider myself a lifelong learner for my whole life. And I am great in all the subjects, in my opinion. But you put me in chemistry, I'm like, oh God, I suck at school because I don't have that one subject I don't know how to do. And so, like, a kid who doesn't have that confidence, doesn't have the self esteem, will see that one subject and be like, I suck at school. And then they'll give up on the rest. But
Mhm.
being able to realize, like, oh no, like, I'm good at this, I'm good at that. And so I tell parents, like, it's really important to be like, hey, like, I see how hard you tried, and that's what matters.
Absolutely. Praising the effort as opposed to the outcome is a huge tool for creating confident learners and also creating children that want to continue learning because they don't feel that it's just about the right answer.
Exactly. And then they're feeling capable and they feel supported early. So they're more likely to try that challenging work. They're more likely to be like, oh, that looks hard, but I'm going to try it anyways. I liked like telling people like a child who like might be struggling like in first grade. So like they're first grade, they're having a really hard time with reading, like, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at school. But if you're like, okay, reading's hard, but look what you did with math. Look what we did outside. Like, you just did a nice cartwheel. I can't do a cartwheel, but you could do a cartwheel. Like, and just like reminding them, like, it's okay to struggle. Like, I have struggles too. And I think that's really important. Just being like, I have issues too. I got some problems I got to work on, and like, we're working on them. And they're like, oh, it's not just me who's having a hard time.
My favorite things when I taught preschool, I am notoriously terrible at spelling. Um, and 4 and 5-year-olds are always like, "How do you spell this? How do you spell that?" And I was like,
Yep.
I don't know, and I don't want to tell you the wrong thing." And then you take it home to your parents, and they're like, "That's wrong," and you're gonna be like, "Well, Miss Sarah said you spell it." So, I started asking my Apple Watch how to spell things in the classroom because I wanted to demonstrate to my class, like, "Hey, I also don't know how to spell everything, and like that's okay." Until my kids figured out that they could come up and push the side button on my Apple Watch and be like, "Siri, how do you spell?" And so they just started doing it, and I ended up having to, like, take my watch off and put it on the counter, and they would walk up and be like, "How do you spell popsicle?" And then walk back and tell them that it was hilarious. And one of the parents came in and be like, why is my kid talking to my Apple Watch now. And I was like, they're only asking how to spell things. Like, this is a great system. She's like, no, it's great. They don't ask me anymore. So that was one of my favorite moments as a preschool teacher.
Yeah, and it's innovative. You're teaching kids how to get help when they don't have the answer. And that's such an important skill because a lot of kids are like, "Oh, I don't know it. I'm gonna act out," and then a behavior arises. Or you just taught these kids something innovative and it's supportive of what they need at that time.
Yeah. And also when you're one adult with, 12 to 20 children, there's
Yeah.
only so many questions you can answer at a time. And we should be using technology to our advantage in that way.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then so I'm wondering, so research also shows that boys and girls may develop different strengths in school at different times. Doesn't mean they're not going to, like academic and social. What do you think parents should understand about these differences?
I think it ties into yes, there are some gender divides, but also that every single child is different. Like you may have four daughters and they're not all going to develop the same way and develop, in the same path, same timeline, all of those things. But it is important to understand that the expectation, while usually milestones are given in an age range, does vary with gender as well. And also understanding that, like, that's okay. I mean, even brain development, like, you think about just the timeline, like, women's brains finish developing at 18 and men's at 21. It's a 3-year difference. So, like, that's an important thing to kind of just think about and have, whether you apply it directly, but just kind of have it in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and it's true, like brain maturation is just a guesstimate. We don't know for sure. There's so much about a human brain that we don't know still. And so, like, yes, they may appear to be gender differences, but different strengths appear at different times. And just because it appeared at 4 doesn't mean it's not going to show up by the time they're 6 or 8 or 10. And it goes for boys and girls. Like, girls tend to do better academically right away, and boys tend to do better socially right away. But that doesn't mean that it can't be reversed. I think
Absolutely.
yeah, one of my biggest, like, points that I trying to bring up is, like, there was 3 girls in my house, 3 sisters, we were all within 3 years of each other, and we are extremely different, but raised exactly the same. One of us is really good at sports, the other one's really good academically, and the other one's really social, and it's like, it's just who that person was and who they turned out to be.
Yeah. And honestly, like, uh, you have to remember that there is this balance of nature versus nurture. Like there is, you can nurture all of your children the exact same way, like your example, and some elements of nature will win out. Like I saw this mom, I was reading like a sleep training blog, and this mom was like, "Yeah, I have an 18-month-old who does not sleep through the night, who wakes up 5 times, who needs to be rocked to sleep every time. I have an 8-week-old who sleeps through the night and doesn't need to be rocked. I've done the exact same thing. They're just different children." And I think that's so important for parents to remember because it's also easy for parents to compare their child to other children.
Oh, yeah. I yes, it's super easy, and, like, our study even talks about how, like, social emotional constructs and all of these gender differences that even when they put into different things, like, when they were comparing, they saw that boys and girls eventually ended up evening out, and so while one skill showed up first, doesn't always mean that they showed up later.
Absolutely.
Um, sorry, my screen froze. So, what do you think are some daily habits parents can do at home to help build their child's confidence and love of learning?
I think we've touched on this a little bit. A big thing is praising the effort and the learning process. I also have talked a lot with, like in teacher trainings about reducing our use of the phrase good job. Um, I feel that good job is so heavily overused, and it's really unspecific praise. I would much rather tell a child, I love the colors that you chose for your picture, than great job with your painting. Because Honestly, I could say great job with your painting without looking up. And
Mhm.
I think kids start to know that, especially if, you're a busy parent and your kid is constantly running up to you, look what I made, look what I did, look at this, look at this. It's really easy to just be like, good job, good job, good job. Um, and if we actually can engage more meaningfully, we build their confidence because they feel that we're truly watching, we're truly observing and appreciating what they did. So if your child is learning to ride a bike, instead of focusing on one day you'll get your training wheels off, we're focusing on, I love the way you steered around that rock. You did such a fantastic job noticing that there was a bump here and preparing yourself for it. Like these specific comments that validate their effort, I think are really crucial.
Yeah, and I completely agree. We're told in school that, like, saying good job is expected. But the more we're learning, the more research that comes out, and as a child development specialist, like, they tell us, like, good job is generic. Good job is kind of like a get out of jail free card. Like, it is just an easy, here you go. It's super easy to apply versus, oh, let me take the time and look and show you that I'm looking. And I think another daily habit that parents can do at home to kind of help build that confidence is kind of shifting from doing the work for them to kind of telling, like, coaching them through it. So it's okay, the first time I'm going to do it, and then you're going to see what it is. And then we go to, okay, we're going to do this together. I want you to learn how to do it with me. And then, okay, we've done that enough times together. Now you try it. That's okay if you mess up. Like, we just need to see how you're doing. Like, you try it. You got this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point about parents kind of doing the work for their kids. I think it's really easy to think that if you set an example enough times, they'll do it. But anyone who has, for example, try to teach maybe a parent or a grandparent how to use an iPad. No matter how many times you show them what the email icon looks like, until they start clicking on it themselves, they're not going to get it. And I think it can be very similar with young kids. Like some are very visual learners, but most children need to learn through doing. And if we don't allow them to process through it on their own, they're not going to remember it 5 seconds later.
Yeah, and that's so true. And the biggest, like, example that I use with that is tying your shoes or putting on your shoes. Because we're so in the habit of, I'm gonna put your shoes on. I'm gonna put your shoes on. It's gonna be faster. We're already running late. Let's go. Versus, okay, like, we got time. We don't have to be there when we need to be there. Like, just put on your shoes. Like, you try it. And they put left on right and right on left. That's okay. They're trying. It's the actual effort of doing it. And they're realizing, oh, that feels a little funky versus how it normally feels.
Absolutely, and I like the point that you made about rushing. I've talked a lot about, I feel like as parents and as educators, we're kind of stuck in this panicked rushing through the day. Every task has a task after it. We got to get there. We got to get there. We got to get there. And slowing down and appreciating those small moments and allowing for children to work through things is really important. I always laugh when I see parents post online like, "Oh, I regret ever letting my toddler learn to buckle themselves in the car because now they have to do it every time and it takes 45 minutes." And I'm like, "Yeah, but they're learning. And someday your hands are going to be full of groceries and you're going to be thrilled that they buckled themselves into the car and you didn't have to do it."
Exactly. And another good tool that you can use is, like, asking guiding, like, questions instead of giving answers. Like, "Oh, mom, where's my so and so toy? Oh, I wonder where was the last place you played with it. I wonder if you looked in the living room. I wonder if so and so is over here," instead of, "It's over there." Because you're asking, and so now they're thinking, like, "Oh, I did play with it over here. Maybe I left it over here." And so now they're going through, like, their own thought process and not expecting the answer to just be given.
Absolutely. Thought processing is so important for cognitive development because it steps away from the hard set yes and no, and it allows a child to actually be and think and like process through a space.
Yes. So let's go ahead and move on to daily activities and school collaboration, which can support a whole child. Even as children get older, play, hobbies, and exploration, they are also vital parts of development. So, how do you think play, hobbies, and activities outside of school help kids learn and grow?
I think so many ways, and this really, harps on that academics are not the only important thing for your child. A lot of children are involved in sports or dance or gymnastics or some sort of large movement activity. Those can be great for teamwork, for gross motor skills, for um, communication skills, for memory, for social emotional development. Like losing a sports game is a huge milestone. Like being okay with that is a big deal. If you're taking dance, you're memorizing choreography. If you're, doing gymnastics, it has a major impact on the vestibular system and your nervous system regulation. Like there's all of these things that contribute to brain development and to just like your core being and your personality. Like kids want to be unique. If every kid took the exact same classes, ate the exact same food, did it like how boring would our world be? Um, Allowing a child to find a hobby that they enjoy is a really powerful thing.
Yeah. And also, learning through play reinforces your self confidence, but it also reinforces academic concepts, but without the pressure that a school setting does. For example, like building a Lego tower can teach planning, it teaches math, it teaches persistence. Or board games can teach problem solving and patience. You also have games like Candyland or Shoots and Ladders, and that has kids practicing turn taking, they practice patience, they practice numbers even because they have to count.
I always loved having board games in the classroom. I think it's one of those things that we as like a teaching culture have kind of moved away from that I'm disappointed about because like there is so much value in playing a board game, especially like I taught in a mixed age preschool setting at one point in my career. So I had 3, 4, and 5-year olds. And so rather than separating them out by age, I just selected the first 4 kids that wanted to play Candyland and put them together. And the older kids had to learn that maybe a 3-year-old didn't understand the rules and that was okay. And the younger kids had to learn that maybe if you broke the rules, other people are going to get upset about it.
Yeah.
And it was like a really valuable social lesson for everyone.
Yeah, and it's teaching those it even can teach those older kids, like, "Oh, I need to slow down," and teach them. Or the younger
Mhm.
kids need to realize, like, "Oh, I don't know everything quite yet, like, I need someone to teach me," and so, like, that's super important. And it's also the same with, like, creative play, like pretending to run a restaurant or, like you said, cafe, like, it encourages kids to practice their communication skills, practice social skills, practice planning. Like, "Oh, I'm gonna be the waiter, and you're gonna go sit down, and I'm gonna bring you coffee, and you're gonna tell me what you wanna order, and I have to figure out how to make that."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I even think, like, collecting rocks, like, just letting your kids be outside and, like, collect rocks, collect bugs, look at the leaves, like, now they're asking questions about the world too. And so, like, just having all of these opportunities allows them to practice all the things they're learning in school.
Absolutely, and I think fresh air itself is so valuable. I know you and I both have infants. Sometimes when my daughter will not stop crying, I will just take her outside instantly. She's fine. Unfortunately, I live in a cold environment where sometimes I'm taking her out in 15-degree weather with like 18 blankets wrapped around her. But still, the second she touches the fresh air, she's like, and you can feel her nervous system reset, and so that's just such a valuable thing for children.
Yeah. And it is true. Like, you need to get outside. Like, we strived in a time where we were allowed outside all of the time. And now so much of our society is inside on a tablet, on a screen, that we forgot the element of being outdoors has.
Absolutely.
So how do you think parents can find out about how their child is doing socially at school? Or how can parents find out how their child is doing socially at school, and what help should schools provide if a child needs those type of support?
I think it depends on the age of your child. I think the number one way is to listen to what they say about their day, listen to, ask questions. Who did you play with? What did you do together? Those sorts of things. Usually, a kid that does have good verbal communication skills will tell you if they played with a friend, what that friend's name is, what they did, all that sort of stuff. With younger kids, you can always ask the teachers. I mean, you can always ask the teachers anyway, but with younger kids or a child that doesn't have as strong of verbal communication skills, I would ask the teachers. The teacher should be observing that in the classroom, should be able to tell you or even put you in contact with maybe their friends' parents, and you can plan a play date outside of school and observe them interacting together. One thing that I always try to remind parents is sibling dynamics are very different than peer dynamics. Um, and the amount of times that I've heard a parent say, well, they're around other kids at home. Well, they're 6 and their sister is 15. That's not really being around other kids. Putting them in a room with 19 other 6-year-olds is going to be considerably different for that child.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up because it's true, like, your sibling is much different from your friend. Your sibling you see all the time, they annoy you, you fight, you like them, but with your friends, like, there's that want to be liked, there's that want to be around them and hang out with them, whereas your sibling, you're forced to be around them.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like, even, I mean, obviously with twins, you are the same age, but there's still someone that you're with constantly in the home setting, as opposed to like, I even think about like if you have like dogs, and you bring your dog into another dog's house. That dynamic is very different than if they meet at a neutral location, and school can kind of pose as that neutral location where they can be themselves without the pressure of feeling like, "Oh, well, this is my toy and this is my thing," and that kind of element.
Yeah, and you can, like the study even brought up, like, teacher observations highlight, the importance of social aspects, like, tip younger teachers or younger age classrooms, those teachers tend to focus on what's going on socially than academics because at the beginning, like kinder to third, kinder to fourth, your academics aren't as important as yeah, they play really well with others, they're kind, they can speak. So like just having those regular check-ins with teachers and being like, how's that going? Or even asking about like classroom strategies for building that confidence and peer support is another tool parents can find out how their kids are doing socially.
Absolutely. And I think teacher observations are such an important thing that unfortunately I feel in the early childhood setting. At least in my experience, has not been used as thoroughly as it should be, because there's not always the time or the resources for it, especially in like the corporate childcare setting. But those notes are so valuable. I think about, my daughter was in daycare starting at 12 weeks old. If I wasn't the director, I would not have known what was going on every second of her day. Like her teachers did their best, but what shows up in the app is, she had a bottle and she took a nap and she had a wet diaper, not that she smiled at a friend or that, she laughed when another kid threw something. Like those things don't go in there because they're so busy. But that's such valuable information as a parent.
Yeah, and that's why I think face-to-face check-ins are more important, and, like, yes, we do have that, like, Class Dojo or this app or that app that gives you notes on the days, or sometimes they send out pictures and what's going on in that app, but if you can be like, "Hey, like, how's my kiddo doing in your class? Like, what have you been noticing?" P Teachers are then now actively thinking, "Oh, like, this happened in class and this happened, like, I forgot about this." And, like, just having that face-to-face interaction, if and when you can, is really important too.
Absolutely.
Um, so what final advice would you give parents about supporting their child in school and in life?
I think you need to think about your child as a mini human. I think sometimes we forget that kids are mini humans, that they have a full range of emotions, feelings, fears, anxieties. I think it's really easy to look at your child and still see this itty bitty baby that eats, cries, and sleeps, and that's it. Um, so take a step back. Think about how you would feel if you were put in a scary situation. If you were, had a lot of pressure to succeed, how would that make you feel? It's such an important thing. So yeah, I think take a step back, take a breath, think about how you would feel in this experience and go from there because it's easy to be exhausted and frustrated and just desperate for your child to do well. The reality is taking a breath and taking a step back can be the most valuable thing a parent can do.
I love that. That's great advice. I would also contribute that celebrating effort and resilience, and just kind of letting them explore and figure things out is another really important step that parents can use.
Absolutely.
Supporting children isn't just about grades, it's about helping their mind, heart, and social skills grow together. I want to thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me on our podcast. And thank you, our listeners, for spending this time with us on Willow Kids Podcast. If today's conversation sparked a new idea, gave you reassurance, or simply made you pause and reflect, we'd love for you to carry that into your week and into the lives of the children you support. If you can learn more about Willow Kids, upcoming programs, and our growing community by visiting us online. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing or sharing it with someone who cares deeply about education and childhood growth. Until next time, keep nurturing curiosity, keep asking thoughtful questions, and remember, strong roots grow lifelong learners. Thank you again, Sarah.